amazing viewers. Thank you so much for joining me on my program once again. I appreciate you wherever you are connecting from. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please kindly subscribe to my channel. Click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you so much and remain blessed. Whenever you look my video, whenever you watch my video, share the video to all platforms. Share it to family and friends. Share it in your WhatsApp group so that people can get information on what is happening in the contraption called Nigeria, mainly against the Biafrans, against the Duduas, against the indigenous people in the contraption called Nigeria. I try as much as possible to set the record straight. I don't preach hate speech. I don't speak against people. I set the record straight. The only important thing I do here is to make sure that the plight of the people remains on the front burner and the world will know the true story of what is going on in the contraption called Nigeria. Remember, they will always change the narrative. The government will always try as much as possible to use the conventional media to change the narrative, but that I will not allow. In this platform, we'll set the record straight and we'll say it the way it is. Not preaching hate speech, not by talking down to anybody, but setting the record straight and bringing the information to the front burner and letting the world know the exact situation of things. Each time you watch my video, you can equally go to the comment section, put down your comment, say it the way you feel it. It's so welcome. You can criticize if you so desire, but do it constructively so that we can be able to learn from one another. That is why I'm here. And now, I'm going to share with you a very important video. I hope after watching the video from the beginning to the end, you're going to enjoy the video and you continue to stick around and be able to enjoy the rest videos that are going to be coming your way from time to time. Thank you so much for coming. Today, the video I'm going to share with you is a very important video.
Our focus related to the military. We bring you this interview, which was earlier conducted with Chief Philip Asiedu, former Minister of Petroleum Resources, a man with many caps. Well, I did that interview. Here it is.
Thank you, Chamberlain. We have with us right here now Chief Philip Asiedu, who was Permanent Secretary before, during, and after the civil war that Nigeria undertook in the 60s. And he is also former Chief Economic Advisor to President Obasanjo in this Fourth Republic. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
There are many accounts of what happened during the civil war, before the war even happened. Many of them are skewed depending on whoever is giving the account at the time. You were an insider in government before the war and during the war. What were some of those things that people may have missed?
Well, the point is that there was, at time we got independence, there were still some political problems outstanding.
Such as?
The minorities question. For instance, we had that commission which agreed that the minorities, especially in the Delta area, had what you call South-South these days, had some legitimate grouses, and that the might could be accommodated by creating a separate region. But that if they did create a separate region, it will delay independence, which we had agreed. Now this commission was in 1958, and to delay independence beyond 1960. But our founding fathers said, no, we keep to our independence date, we will solve these problems later. So you had that agitation going on. The Middle Belt was also restive. And in fact, the army had to be deployed to keep peace there. And all that was there. Then we became independent. But the most critical issue was when the action group, the leaders, the ruling party in the West, got into internal trouble, between Akintola and Awolowo, and in fact, split. And the NCNC and the NPC, who were the coalition ruling after the 1959 election, exploited the situation and created Midwest region. There had been a legitimate and continued demand for a Midwest region. But interestingly, at the beginning of it, it was to be Benin, Ondo, and Warri province. It wasn't a question of tribe. It was a question of devolution and, for greater effective this thing. But later on, it became Midwest, just Benin and Warri province. Now they created Midwest region. Even though there had been a longer standing demand for Calabar Goja rivers, that was not created. The Middle Belt was not created. If there had been more statesmanship, and even not just creating Midwest, say if they had created Middle Belt state and core Middle Belt region and COR, core Goja Rivers region, the history of Nigeria might have been different. But that wasn't done. And so that continued to create problems. But with the split of the action group, and just dividing up Western region, not addressing the other two, that was there. But the last straw was, you had the elections of 1964, because the earlier one was 59. And every 5 years, you had to have parliamentary elections under a parliamentary system. Now that 64 election, unfortunately, OBGA decided to boycott the elections because they said people were being nominated unopposed in the north. But under an electoral system, whoever shows up and is a candidate, you vote. If he has a majority, is elected. So they didn't think, what happens after? You just say you're boycotting election. And of course, they proceeded to boycott the elections. And of course, those who stood in those constituencies were declared elected.
And this was part of...
This is 64.
And this was because of the political permutations then were along ethnic lines?
No, they were not definitely along ethnic lines. Because don't forget, NCNC had won a majority in 54 in the West. But over the 3 months period, a lot of things happened. And when they assembled to elect the premier, Zik had gone confidently as leader of NCNC, only to see people deserting, particularly the Ibadan, Mabalaje NCNC Grand Alliance, which has 6 members, and 5 with Akinloye went away. Only Adelabu remained in the NCNC. But what I want to tell you is that now led to Zik becoming leader of the opposition in the West when he thought he would be premier. Now, if the NCNC had had the premiership East, West, and things might have been different.
So how did all these lead to the coup of 1966?
I'm not telling you, because all these stresses, the military had been deployed, trying to keep the peace. When you tell soldiers, come and keep peace, you know what you're looking for. Maybe that's a part. But the point is that this almost would play into the hands of people who say, these politicians can manage. There were people in the military, different cadres. We understand. Some majors were planning. Some lieutenant colonels were planning. Because, unfortunately for us, Yadema had done a coup and seized power in Togo. So, law and order almost breaking down.
So the military came in.
Then, unfortunately, we had lost the Minister of Defense, Ribado. He had died, who, if he was still Minister of Defense, might have been able to take preemptive action. Because there is no coup that happened in Nigeria without a lot of warning that a coup But unfortunately, Balewa had called a Commonwealth conference. And for the first time, British Prime Minister, everybody were in Nigeria to discuss the seizure of power in Rhodesia by Ian Smith and what to do. So this meant that for 2 weeks, the Prime Minister couldn't be concerned with all these, detailed reports on the security situation. And as soon as they departed, even with one of the head of state still here, the coup took place. And that led to the counter-coup of July in 1966.
How did the federal government at that time manage that coup?
Well, once the soldiers agreed that they can take orders from no one else plus Gawan, then, for about 2 days, people didn't know. There was no effective authority. Ironsi had been killed, but we didn't know if he was killed or not. He wasn't around. Ogundikwe, who was next to him, tried to give orders to a major. That one said he wouldn't take orders from him. He only take orders from another man. And of course, Ogundikwe then took refuge in a British man of war, which was in the harbor. So for about almost 2 days, until some federal PAMSECs, then the civil service was still respected. Federal PAMSECs, including an Igbo PAMSEC, now went to Ikeja cantonment, where Gawan had gone and was held hostage, in quotes, went there, and they were challenged. Say, what tribe are you? Because if you say Igbo, you're gone. They said, we are civil servants. And that was enough. Prestige was there. They allowed them. So they now went. When they discovered only Gawan, they would this thing, came back and reported. And we said, well, so be it. We must have government. And so Gawan came from Ikeja to Lagos, and we had prepared questions and answers to the federal PAMSECs, a few of us, committee, because you have to introduce him to the international press to say Nigeria still has a government, this is the government. And luckily for us, there was no question he was asked we had not briefed him on, and that went there. So that was how order was reestablished. As for the soldiers who thought blow up Kata Bridge and Arewa, north to the north and all that, well, we have single line railway. You put your children in railway and all that, it's going to the north. Another train is coming from the north. If there is no authority to say, please, you wait, you pass, chaos. Anyway, they were persuaded that you can't break up Nigeria that way. But as a consequence one of the agreements was that soldiers should be taken as much as possible back to their area of origin.
One of the main items that's played over the years in this whole conversation about the civil war is the Aburi Accord. Yes. Some say that it was the civil servants that advised the head of state at the time, General Gowon, not to follow the Aburi Accord with the southeastern government at the time.
You see, yes and no. One, General Gowon actually misunderstood in the preliminary discussions with Ojukwu and all that, the nature of the meeting in Aburi. He probably thought it was just, chaired by Ankara. Tell fellow officers, please, enough is enough. Let us get back to order. And he thought it was just going to be that, and did not inform the secretary to the government that there was going to be this kind of conference, you know. And so when the night or 2 days before, he told the secretary to the government, he said, well, we don't go to meetings unprepared. So I'm not coming. He didn't go. A permanent secretary went, the late Oba of Benin, Eradua, was at Prince Akenzwa then. He went because he was covering the position of principal private secretary, more or less, to take minutes. Now, when they got to Abuja, Ojukwu had come with a heavy group.
I mean Aburi.
Aburi. Heavy group of advisors, including one of the most brilliant Nigerians of our generation, the Paoso Kibo, or the PAMSEC and all that had worked out positions. We had not. General Gawan hadn't gone there with advisors of that caliber. Nothing was prepared beforehand. But anyway, they thought this was to be breaking of ice, shaking, because since the programs started in September, the military governors had not met at all. And Ojukwu, in fact, was still contesting that Gawan should not be head of state, Gundikwe, the most senior, should be, etc., etc. Now, so they now came back with something which amounted, if it was implemented, to a confederation in which Nigeria would cease to exist. So this was analyzed and said, is this what you people went to do? What was that your intention? It wasn't. And so, despite that, General Gawan still insisted that the decree which would come out must contain one or two clauses, if it came out as decree number 8, which the Biafrans under Ojukwu rejected, saying on Aburi we stand. If they had accepted that decree, Nigeria would have disintegrated within 3 months. Because under that decree, each region or state would have its own army, each region would have its army, and if there was an attack on Nigeria, it will only be after consultations that they would agree if they will unite to defend Nigeria. 2, nobody could be made ambassador, nobody could be promoted super scale, that is from assistant secretary to senior assistant secretary, without unanimity.
Unanimity of?
All the military governors. You know, so if those 2 clauses were implemented, you don't have a country, you know. But they rejected decree number 8, said on Aburi we stand, which was outright confederation.
After the war, what efforts were made by the federal government to try to appease? Yes, General Gawan at the time said no victor, no vanquished. Was that enough?
During the Civil War, we were able, I and a few of us, we did quite a bit of helping in presenting what were federal government hopes post-Civil War about what became 3 R's: rehabilitation, reconciliation, reconstruction. Now, in 1969, while the war, we saw it was coming to an end, we were able to organize a conference in Ibadan with Chief Simeon Adebo, our permanent representative in the UN, as the chairman. We had the academia, politicians, students, journalists, to talk about what Nigeria should do after the war. And it was the conclusions of that conference, and it was produced in a book edited by late Professor Nitiri and late Alice Nayeda, that led us to do the 70-74 plan and also 75-80 plan. The first thing is rehabilitation. Feed people, get them together. No question of repetition of massacre or killings or somebody is Biafra, because war has ended. No victor, no vanquished. That was going on. And reconstruction. Materials were given to enable people build back their shacks. But quite interestingly, in places like Lagos, even the people who had properties and gone away, rents were collected, kept intact. When they came back, they were given. Badiwe and Co. and others. It's only in Port Harcourt, unfortunately, that they did these abandoned properties and took over people's properties. And you know, the Igbos had developed much of Port Harcourt. That was very, very unfortunate. And we must praise the Igbo man for his courage and resilience. In no time at all, despite the pogroms and all that, they were back in many of these cities, you know. And today, despite what we are hearing about hip-hop and masob and all that, outside the big companies and conglomerates, when you look at the second tier of activity, traders, businessmen, the Igbos are in every state.
This is where we are now, 2020.
Yes.
And it seems some people still need that healing, that reconciliation, reintegration. What do you think we should do now going forward?
Good qualitative functional education for everybody, so that we are no more talking quota based on tribe or based on this thing. Because we'll be equal. We'll be talking about the best man for the job. And as Achebe said, you want to play international match, you take your 40 level. Where do you go? That's one. Two, go back to our priorities. Exploit agriculture, agro-allied, process it for export. So I'm saying that if we go back to education, genuine development, then we really have the basis of healing.
This is an amazing place to live. We'll have to thank you very much for your time and for your thoughts. Chief Philip Asiodu, CFR, is a permanent secretary during the Civil War and is a former chief economic advisor to President Obasanjo in the Fourth Republic. We have to thank you once more.
Thank you very much.
We must continue. We move. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what they say. They will kill us. We will kill them. At the end of the day, Biafra is here. Thank you for watching. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please kindly subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell so that you're notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you, and remember this. Bye-bye. See you again.